Welcome to Pack Talk Podcast, episode 132. Today we're going to be talking about what to do if your dog won't take food, your dog won't work for treats. What are you going to do for that? What are you going to do to increase your dog's food drive? How are you going to complete your training if they won't take food? So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to give you some actionable steps and insights into why your dog might not be taking food, why they're not motivated by food during training, and some strategies that you can use to increase motivation for food and still meet your training goals. So we get a lot of comments all the time. You know, they're watching one of our videos. We're showing you on a video how to do this, how to do that. We're using a lot of food at the beginning of our training, but as training goes on, we're slowly reducing that food. So we get a lot of comments. My dog won't take food. What do I do if my dog won't take food? My dog is not motivated by food. And I know that this is super stressful for a lot of people to be in, because you want to train your dog. You want to have fun with your dog, but your dog just won't take food. So believe it or not, this is a fairly common challenge for dog owners, and this can be for a variety of reasons of why it's happening to you and your dog, which we're going to explore. All right. But if this is your first time listening, my name is Chad. I'm the founder of Canine Revolution Dog Training. We've been serving dogs, owners, dog lovers, dog trainers since 2017. We specialize in dog training, dog behavior, and dog psychology. Today I've got professional dog trainer Kevin with me from Canine Revolution Dog Training. We're going to be having this discussion about why your dog won't take food, what to do about it. But don't forget, check out Pack Talk Podcast and Canine Revolution Dog Training on YouTube, and leave us a 5-star review on your favorite podcast platform. As a quick reference, I'm going to be talking a lot about training progressions, and a training progression is basically where you're starting with your training and where you're going with your training from start to finish. And so just as a quick reference for you, in Pack Talk Podcast episode 96, I went through in detail our overall training progression, what we use at Canine Revolution Dog Training as far as the training progression, and spelt that out for you, what you should be looking for at each step along the way, and a recommended strategy for progress for your dog. So what I recommend is, if you're looking to kind of get your head wrapped around a training progression, check out that episode after you listen to this episode, so you can have that guide as you continue on your dog training journey. You can find that on your favorite podcast platform, and you can also find it on YouTube. And don't forget, when your dog is taking food and you're using food for training, as your training progresses, you have to slowly reduce the amount of food that you're using as time goes on. What a lot of people end up with is they end up using lots of food at the beginning of training, which is great, and they have a really hard time getting rid of the food in training. So we want to use food at the beginning because it helps us complete repetitions very quickly. It helps our dog want to do things. It helps our dog solve problems, which helps their brain develop. But we have to titrate that off so we can sustain the behavior without food long term. We call that the maintenance phase of training, where you're basically done with your training and you're just maintaining your behaviors, okay? But first, as we're talking about why is my food not motivated, let's talk about how to understand what are some reasons why your dog might not be food motivated. And then we have to explore some potential strategies to overcome that. So one of the first things that comes to mind whenever your dog is not taking food is satiation. Satiation? Satiation. Yeah. Kevin always corrects me on my grammar.
You were there.
So basically, is your dog have too much stored energy, right? That's going to be in their body weight, right? If your dog's overweight, they probably have too much stored energy that could be stored as fat in the body. Does that mean that they don't want food because their body already has enough calories to sustain itself? That is a possibility. We've also seen a bunch of dogs that are overweight and they still love food. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm talking about? You see that big chunky dog and that thing's ready to go after.
Zero impulse control.
So the satiation can be a potential issue if your dog has too many calories. But there's also a bunch of dogs that even if they have all these calories, they have all this stored energy, they still will go crazy for the food. So in my experience, usually the satiation comes into account with other things like stress, anxiety, insecurity. If they have stress, anxiety, insecurity, plus they have excessive calories stored in their body, you've got two things that are working against you, right, with the dog that won't take food. But what I would recommend, if you have a dog that is overweight, has too many stored calories, go ahead and start reducing their calories. Go ahead and start getting them to a healthier body weight. That way you're going to instigate some better food drive for your training. And the ways that you could reduce their body weight relatively quickly, one, reduce their calories with their food. So for example, if you feed them 1 cup of kibble in the morning, 1 cup of kibble in the evening, first of all, switch them over to a raw diet, right? But let's say you can't do that, right? So you keep them on the kibble. Maybe you just go to a 3/4 cup in the morning, 3/4 cup in the evening, right? So you're just slowly reducing the calories. And then add in some extra walks. That way they're moving more. That way their body's actually burning that energy, right? So those are two simple things you can do to start improving their fat loss and increasing their appetite. What have you seen with dogs that are satiated? Is it anything different?
No, I mean, but it's like, as an owner, just, understand, because a lot of people, they look at it like, well, my dog keeps eating, they must be hungry. And it's like, you have to keep that in mind. You want to maintain a healthy weight. I know it's very prevalent in like the more senior owners. Those dogs are usually pretty well rounded,
right?
A little gaspy, when they come in for training. But it's like some dogs are, like we said, just have kind of like that lack of impulse control. I've heard stories of dogs getting into their bags of food and eating so much to where their organs were shutting down. They had to go and get, induced vomiting and things like that done at the vet.
Yeah.
So it's like, follow the dietary guidelines, if not on, the bag of kibble you may be feeding, but consulting like a nutritionist.
Right.
Because just because they keep eating doesn't mean they're hungry. You may just have one of those dogs that has a high food drive. Roxy, my pit, she's like that.
Yeah.
She would just eat and eat and eat if I let her. And, you're going to get to a danger zone eventually.
Right. And those dogs, if they have a high food drive, they typically will take food in training. So if your dog is not taking food and they also have excessive calories, you're probably dealing with a multiple factors in the reason why your dog's not taking food. Another reason why a dog might not be taking food in training or might not be food motivated could be the high arousal, high value reward versus low value food reward. Now real quick, just a side note, we do have high arousal versus low arousal rewards. All right. So a high arousal reward is something that really jacks up your dog. If you have like a typical working dog, it could be like a ball, really makes them go crazy. And then your low arousal reward would be your food reward. Okay. But in this case, the dog's not taking food. It's not food motivated. So that could be, we need to find a higher value food reward versus a lower value food reward. So, for example, let's say you're trying to train your dog with food. You're trying to train it with your dog's own kibble. Some dogs will do that. Ben's dog, JoJo, she loves anything, right? So you can train with kibble, no problem with some dogs. But other dogs, if you're trying that, the dog's not interested. That could mean that the kibble that you're trying to train with is a low value food reward. The dog doesn't care about it enough to actually work with it, right? Versus a high value food reward if you got like some cut up beef liver, right? Or you got some cut up pieces or even some ground beef that you kind of cut up, right? You cooked it a little bit. That could be a higher value food reward where your dog that would not take your kibble for training, it would take that ground beef for training because it's a higher value food reward. You see what I'm saying? So sometimes you have to experiment and see what I'm using right now at enough value state to the dog for it to start actually training and working with the food. So I know several years ago, this dog has been stuck in my brain in this type of situation. I was trying everything with the dog, right? I tried like cut up pieces of meat. I tried like chicken. I tried like little freeze-dried treats. This dog would not work for anything, right? So then I just happened to be waiting for an appointment. I decided to pull into Food Lion, went through Food Lion, and there was like a pre-packaged strips of steak. It was like pieces of steak that was like kind of like the fatty parts of the steak or the wasted parts of the steak for like a leaner steak, but they like would cut these up into tiny pieces, put them in this container, put it on the shelf. So I'm like, let me try this. So I bought it, and then I went home and I put it in the oven, and I kind of just like let it simmer, let it cook a little bit, took it out, went out to train the dog. Boom, the dog just immediately went crazy for this food. And I was like, oh shit, you know, I just found a higher value food reward for this particular dog. Because everything else I had tried, which was everything under the moon, didn't work. But when I got this like strips of steak, cooked it slightly, made sure they were a small enough piece for the dog, went out and did my training, no problems, right? And so what I was actually able to do is mix that, because I wasn't going to keep buying the steak, you know, because that's kind of like not cost effective
Right.
long term. So what I ended up doing was like taking that steak, mixing it with the old food rewards that I was using, which I think were Happy Howie beef rolls at the time. So I'd mix it with that. And so the dog was still taking the food. So since I got the food drive kick-started with the high-value food reward, I was able to mix that high-value food reward with my previously lower-value food reward and actually bring up the value of that old reward. And so whenever I ran out of the beef, I kept using the Happy Howie beef rolls, and the dog kept training, no problems. So that high value, like if you're in the situation, you find a higher value food reward, you can experiment, try anything. Once you find it, try to mix it with your older, lower value food reward to bring that value up, and then you can use that long term in your training. So that was very effective for me. I have done that several times with dogs, actually. Had to find something that they were really into, then mix it into the old stuff I was using, and then use the old stuff. And that could be partially context, right? Once a dog starts taking food from me and engaging in training with me, it's having a good time. It wouldn't really matter what kind of food I have, because I've already established the classical conditioning in the dog's brain that working with me is fun with food.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You ever run into that where you got to change up some value states of food?
Yeah, I mean, I just doing this with a dog that we have here now, and it was just building the repetitions. It's like she just did not want to take food from me. You know, there was just some generalized insecurity, getting used to the new environment, you know, a lot of factors at play. Mm-hmm. I kept trying to offer her different food, finally get something that she couldn't resist. And after a couple times of her taking that, then she started taking the other things. It's like, oh, these taste good too. You know, they just weren't as enticing as what I eventually found at the time.
Right.
You know, so the fading away from that to like my regular, like, you know, dehydrated hot dog rewards was relatively easy. I just had to get her to actually take it and try it and figure out that, hey, she liked it.
Yeah.
Good to go.
Yeah.
You know?
And also with some dogs, like I use the dehydrated hot dogs too now for most of my training. Some dogs, they don't take it at first, so I pinch it. You know, that kind of breaks it open.
Get the
It
scent
releases
going.
the smells,
Oh, yes.
right? The scent. Then the dog will start eating it. Then I don't have to pinch it open anymore. So that is, again, taking that lower value food, bringing it to a higher value state, and then coming back down to the old food that you were routinely using.
Yeah,
See what I'm saying?
just take one. Just take one. That's all you got to do.
So that could be something that might work for you and your dog. So check that out. All right, something else that is a factor for a lot of dogs as to why they're not food motivated: stress, insecurity, anxiety. If a dog has insecurity or anxiety, they are going to have some stress. So when you're looking at your dog, are you seeing any anxiety? Are you seeing any insecurity? Are you seeing stress? If you do, you know, you can take action on that, which I'll talk about here in a second. But that stress could be genetic. It could be learned. There could be factors in the environment that are playing into that. And a lot of times when a dog struggles with insecurity or anxiety and stress, they're not able to trigger their hunger drive because the stress is suppressing it. So these dogs definitely need training to overcome the stress, of course. You don't want to just not train your dog because they're stressed and having a hard time. These dogs need the most training, right? But for this type of situation, there are a couple things that I look at and consider in troubleshooting the situation. First of all, if I'm trying to train my dog in my yard, for example, is there somewhere that my dog is comfortable that's not the yard? Like even if I just stay in the house, if I'm in a particular room in the house, can I get anything started somewhere where the dog is more comfortable just with them starting to take food? If I can, then I'll start my foundational work there and then start to translate it out to the yard, right? Because if I do enough repetitions where my dog is comfortable, once I move outside back to the yard, I should be able to maintain that food drive as we progress, but it might be a slower progression, right? And then second thing I look at, again, going back to the high value versus low value food reward, can I find something that is a high enough value food reward for that dog to take, right? So if I have a super stressed dog, first I'm like, let me find, is there anywhere that this dog is comfortable enough to take food? That might be its kennel, where you're just kind of sitting outside the kennel, feeding it from outside the kennel, right? Secondly, is there a high enough value food reward that they will take? So I'm dealing with this right now. I'm training 2 dogs. They have, one is very insecure. The second one is a little bit insecure and anxious. And for the very insecure dog, what I did to get her starting to take food from me is I would literally, like, because she wouldn't eat it outside the kennel. If I dropped a piece of food and walked away, I'd come back, it was gone. Like whenever I put her in the kennel, I just drop some food inside the kennel, close the kennel, I walk away, I come back, food's gone, which is telling me she's eating in the kennel. She's just not ready to eat outside the kennel. So then I would literally just open up the kennel, sit on the floor right in front of the kennel, and I just feed her, right? And she would eat out of my hand. Mm-hmm. And then I would progress that to where she would eat just outside the kennel, and then in the other room, and then outside. You see what I'm saying? So finding what that dog is comfortable with and then helping them just slowly progress, that's going to help them overcome their stress as well. So you got any input on dogs that are dealing with stress and helping them starting to take food, troubleshooting that you've done?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times, especially when we get these types of, my dog won't take food, it's like people aren't really being patient with it. Mm-hmm. So you said playing around with it, as I've had to do the same thing. Okay, well, now I'm hand feeding every meal. Mm-hmm. And now, she's taking her kibble inside of the kennel. I know that she's comfortable in there. Now I'm dropping the high value food rewards a little bit just to try to create a drive to override that insecurity,
right,
or at least build up the repetitions to where, she's starting to value, my time, what I'm offering her, things of that nature. Mm-hmm. So it's like you have to play around with it. You have to, at a certain point, do what's, best and what's more comfortable for your dog before pushing the limits and saying, oh, well, I tried to give them a treat out in my yard. They won't take it. They're not food motivated at all.
Right.
They're food motivated. You can tap into it. It's just what you have to do to reach that.
Right, for sure. Yeah, like how you said, a lot of people, they try to rush it. That's something you got to keep in mind. Patience.
Yep.
Patience, figure out what works for your dog to get it started. And then once you kind of get it started, you'll be able to progress more rapidly, right? But your priority is to figure out, what do we need to do to get my dog to start taking food? Something else that I find a lot of people that are dealing with food motivation issues, distractions. Mm-hmm. Are you trying to train in a heavily distracting environment right out the gate? You go out to your yard, or if you live in an apartment complex, this can be a challenge. You go down to the, grassy area of the apartment complex. There's cars going by, there's people going by, there's dogs running around, there's cats, squirrels, lots of stuff going on, kids running around, Is this too much going on for your dog to even think about taking a food reward from you or focusing on you? And this is a common problem. So what we recommend is reducing the environmental factors that are going on around your dog, and then figuring out, okay, what's the level of distraction that I can get my dog going? Once I get my dog taking food in a lower distraction, then I can slowly increase the distraction level, right? Kind of goes hand in hand with what we just talked about with the stressed out dog, where they might need to be in their kennel to start, right? For your dog that has dealing with high levels of distractions, maybe you need to start in your apartment. Maybe you need to drive them to like a park that's a very low-key environment, not the apartment complex where there's less things going on, that they can start taking food. Mm-hmm. So think about that. Think about reducing the distractions in your environment. Start off your training in the least distracting place possible. Set up your patterns of behavior, set up your repetitions, and then increase the distractions that are going on around you. So what do you got on that one? Any additions?
Yeah, not forcing it either. A lot of times, the dog will turn its nose away the food. The owner's like chasing them with the food.
Right.
I can't tell you how many times I've just sat down in a chair, had a bowl of food in one hand, leash in the other, and just letting the dog do whatever it wants. Mm-hmm. It's wandering around, it's sniffing, 20-25 minutes go by, it finally puts its nose in the bowl, starts seeing what's going on, takes some of the food. All right, good.
Right.
We're making progress at that point. But I'm not going to like force myself upon my dog and be like, yeah, you should be taking the food, but you know, you want to be comfortable. So like even out here, you know, it's good because we have all these different areas. If we come out to, you know, this field where it's isolated, not a whole lot going on.
Right.
You know, maybe some critters or something like that. But for the most part, you can just sit here. It's just you and the dog, and just wait until they come to you. You know, almost like a little bit of free shaping there.
Right. Exactly.
You know, starting to build that up with them.
Yeah, and they're discovering that on their own, which is more important for them, right?
Right.
I like how you say don't force it, don't chase them around. That's why we always start our training off on a leash. You got your dog on a 6-foot leash. You don't let them drag you around.
Right.
They can only go 6 feet around you. So once they get bored of the 6 feet around you, then they start to come and check in with you and see what you got going on, right? And if you got a bowl of food in your hand and they start eating that, now we're getting somewhere. You know what I'm saying? So patience, take your time, and that might not happen in one session. There's been plenty of times where I'm standing there with the dog or sitting there with the dog. I got him on a leash. Nothing's going on. The dog's just looking around. They won't even look at me. 20 minutes goes by. I'm like, all right, let's take a break. You know, we go take a break, come back out. We try it again. 20 minutes later, nothing happens. I'm like, all right, you know, let's go take a break. We go take a break, and we come out again. Now the dog's like, all right, let me see what you got going on. Then they come investigate what I got in my hand. And as soon as they start taking food, I'm like, good. You know, we start going from there.
Yeah, I mean, getting some social drive going there too.
Exactly, you know? Exactly. All right, another thing that I see a lot with people, predictable rewards. Have you made your rewards too predictable? This commonly happens with people that are in their house, their dog's doing whatever, and they're like, good boy. They run over to the treat bag. They grab the treat. They give their dog the treat. The dog's taking the treat in that situation. So it's very predictable to the dog, right? I just hang out in the house. At some point, I get to go to the treat bag and get a treat, right? But when you're actually trying to work on training and it's not that predictable situation, your dog puts up a wall, right? They're like, I'm not taking food. I don't know what's going on. This ain't usual, right? So are you being too predictable? You need to have a game plan as far as what your goals are, right? If this is you need to stop being so predictable and change up the way that you're getting your dog food. So what you could do is whenever you're giving your dog treats, make sure they're giving you eye contact. Make sure they're giving you engagement. Don't reward them for anything else. Don't just give them a random treat, you know, because they barked at somebody out the window and you want your dog to bark at somebody, right? Don't give them a random treat because they just look pretty, right? Or look good or whatever. Make sure it's for a specific purpose, right? Eye contact, engagement. Once you have those going and it builds up the food drive and motivation for food, then you can kind of go back to treating at random times if you want to. But this is a big problem, right? A lot of people are just treating all the time. Dogs are taking treats all the time, but whenever it's training time, they're not doing it because it's not predictable, right? It's too predictable just to be a good-looking dog hanging out in the house, getting a piece of food. You know what I'm saying? Have you seen that whenever you're doing consultations or whatever?
Oh yeah, for sure. I think everything that goes, you know, hand in hand with this topic as a whole would be like a feeding schedule is, you know, pretty important. You know, I can't tell you the amount of times where people are like, well, they don't really eat when I put it down, so they get to graze all day. Right. So then if they know that that's there, that could be a factor to them kind of blowing you off, you know, as far as the food goes versus like a strict schedule. Okay, this food goes down. 30 minutes later, it goes up. And right, that's a hard thing for an owner to disconnect from, right? We don't want to starve our dogs or make them uncomfortable. I get it.
Right.
But getting them used to where they get food at this time, or they don't get it, or they get it from you, or they don't get it at all, and setting that pattern with them can help like develop that food drive as well, versus them always expecting that food to be there and not really respecting it as a resource that comes directly from you.
Right, for sure. Another thing to think about if you're dealing with a dog that's not motivated by food, negative associations. Is there a potential negative association to your food rewards, to you, to the context of your training? If this is a possibility, you need to change some things up. You might have to train in a new area. You might have to change up your food rewards. So if you think this is a possibility, think about these kind of things. But what could have happened was maybe you were giving your dog a food reward and something loud went off, like, you know, lightning, firework, gunfire, car. outside your house, something happened super loud, boom, happened at the same time or right before you were trying to give your dog a treat or right after. Now your dog associates this crazy noise to you trying to give it food, and now it doesn't want to do it, right? Because it doesn't want to deal with that noise in its head. That's what it's thinking, right? Or maybe you gave it a piece of food and maybe there was a bone in the piece of food. It stabbed your dog in the mouth whenever it ate it.
Mm-hmm.
Holy shit, Now potential negative association, right? Or your cat sitting on the counter, you're trying to give your dog food, and whenever you give your dog food, your cat swipes the hell out of your dog's face.
Mm-hmm.
Potential negative association. Or you give your dog food, your dog, bites it rapidly from your hand, and you yell at your dog from taking the food from your hand. Potential negative association, you know what I'm saying? So these are things you might not think about, but with some dogs, these do matter, right?
Yeah.
And your dog can develop a negative association. It's technically called a superstitious association. They can develop that very rapidly, very quickly. And then that can really set you back as far as trying to get your dog taking food. So think about, is this a possibility? If it is, change up the context of how you're giving your dog food, change up your environment, change up your food rewards, see if it'll help you resolve that factor.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen negative associations with food?
Yeah.
Consultations or anything?
Yeah, and it just depends on the dog. Some dogs will sit there and take food while trains going by and
Right.
Blowing its horn.
Mm-hmm.
Others, that's why we harp on kind of like that isolation, finding where they're comfortable. If that cat's swiping my dog, I'm probably going to separate that cat from the equation while I build up the repetitions,
Right.
Until I get them to function around these different distracting factors.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, definitely plays a part. Even like new environments, people will go and move and try to feed their dog. Dog's not taking the food because they don't speak English. They don't understand why the environment changed, so it's a stressor for them.
Right.
And then like the food keeps getting forced on them. Right.
Right, for sure.
It's like let them kind of just chill out and do their thing. They're not going to do anything that's going to harm them permanently in the long run.
Mm-hmm.
So even if they go like a couple days as you start to implement these things, that's fine.
Yeah.
It's not a big worrying factor. Just stick with it.
Yeah. Absolutely. So those are kind of your big hitters of potential issues as far as why your dog might not be taking food or might not be motivated. Those are the first things I'm looking at. What can I troubleshoot? There are some other strategies, which Kevin's already kind of mentioned, that could be useful when you're trying to instigate your dog's food drive. One of those things is feeding your dog's meals from your hand. And so instead of putting the dog's food in a bowl, putting it on the floor, letting your dog graze, whatever it is, have 2 times, like if you feed your dog twice a day or 3 times a day, whatever it is. Let's just say it's twice a day. You're feeding your dog twice a day, just take 20 minutes, put that food in a pocket or a pouch or take the bowl with you and grab the food in your hand and feed your dog from your hand. Some dogs at first, they might get kind of freaked out by this because they're not used to, having to eat from your hand to get their food. If you put the bowl down, they eat no problem, but if you put it in your hand, they won't eat. Some dogs get freaked out by that, so just be consistent, They won't starve themselves, like Kevin's already said. You take the food out of the bowl, put it in your hand it to your dog. If your dog turns its nose to it, all right, mealtime's over, right? Next time it's mealtime, we'll do the same thing. Bowl, food in the hand it to the dog, see if the dog will take it, right? We'll do that until the dog is taking food from the hand. And a lot of times this can bridge the gap between a dog that's not taking food at all and a dog that will start taking food, and we see their hunger drive, their food drive, food motivation increase, right? So that's a big deal. But the context change, like I said, kind of throws some dogs off, so just be consistent. Don't let your dog get food except from your hand until they start eating it from your hand. Another tactic that you can try and along with this, hand in hand with this, see what I'm saying? Feed from the hands, hand in hand, right? But another tactic you can try, which I've done plenty of times, is if the dog is struggling to take food from my hand, let's say it's been multiple feeding times, the dog's still not taking food from my hand, it's like showing me a little bit of interest by sniffing really hard, but it just won't do it. What I'll do is I might toss some food on the ground. Dog will eat the food off the ground, but not from my hand, right? So I'll just toss some food on the ground. That way the dog is still kind of getting the food from me. I'm just putting it on the ground, making it easier for the dog to eat it. And then usually after some repetition of that, the dog will then have no problem eating from my hand. So that's kind of a troubleshooting step I take if the dog is really struggling just to do that. But typically, 1 or 2 sessions of the food from the hand, the dog's really not having a problem. And this can kind of go hand in hand sometimes with a dog that has insecurity or anxiety. A lot of times the insecurity or anxiety is the underlying problem to this, and so this really helps them overcome that as well, right? So yeah, eating food from the hand, you've already talked about it a little bit. You got anything else to add?
Yeah, I mean, you'll see it more so, obviously from us because we're new to them, especially if we haven't done like a consult or a prior meet and greet or anything like that.
Right.
There is that like adaptation period to where they have to get used to us. But like you said, that ground, it's perfect. You can tell they want it. They just don't want to take it from you.
Right.
Because that trust in the bond, it's like it's like a missing element.
Right.
So I'm sure we'll talk about it later. There's other things you can do to build that up in the meantime. But if you can get them to where they're taking it from even just a bowl in front of you or in the kennel, like we said, or even off the ground, like just building that rep. Eventually that food's going to override. They're going to be like, all right, this guy's okay.
Yeah.
He just wants to give me good stuff.
Right.
Go from there.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, and that's a good point. Like I mentioned, you can toss the food on the ground, but I've also just held the bowl in my hand, lowered it down to the dog's level. The dog will eat from the bowl that's in my hand, and then that'll bridge the gap to eating out of my hand. Or I've just set the bowl on the ground and let the dog eat out of the bowl on the ground next to me. I'm just changing up the context. I'm like bringing me into the picture with the food, with the dog to instigate that dog's food drive and hunger drive, right?
Yeah.
So there's a couple different ways that you can go about that. So that's great that you brought that up. Another strategy that can be useful when you're instigating your dog's food drive, in addition to feeding from your hands, could be trying to use prey drive. So there are dogs that don't really find food exciting, but they will kind of like to chase things or move rapidly. And so prey drive is a dog's natural desire to want to chase and grab things with their mouth. So what we do to see if we can instigate prey drive is we'll put some food in our hand, we'll move rapidly, usually backward or to the side, and we drag our hand. We don't drag it, but we move our hand rapidly as well, about at the dog's shoulder level. And this usually will trigger the dog to kind of move toward the hand rapidly, instigating a little bit of prey drive. When they get to our hand, they find, oh, there's something in there. They eat it. It's a piece of food. And your dog's like, oh, that was fun. Do that a couple times, couple repetitions. And then the dog is generally ready to start taking food from your hand if this is something that could be utilized.
Yeah.
So I've done this a bunch of times with dogs. It's been very successful. I've also had some dogs that do want to chase my hand, but they don't want to take the food from my hand. So what I'll do with these dogs is I'll take the food in my hand, kind of move my hand rapidly. Right when my dog's kind of chasing my hand, I'll just kind of toss the food along the ground and make sure that it bounces a couple times, kind of like you were skipping a rock on lake water or something like that. It bounces. That instigates the dog to go check out what's bouncing. The dog goes over there, it like sniffs it, it eats it. It's like, oh, that was good. Comes back for another one. A couple repetitions of the chasing and the tossing the food. Dog's eating the food reliably. Now the dog will take it from my hand. Boom. Now I've got the food drive, food motivation instigated rapidly, and now I can use food in my training. So pretty effective, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You see that in like a lot of high drive, like sport type dogs.
Right.
Where everything else going on around the chickens and the critters, they're just more valuable than you.
Right.
And so it's like, especially when I do private lessons, I tell these people, like when we start engagement, I'm like, sometimes you kind of have to look like an idiot.
Right.
Make a bunch of noise, move kind of crazy,
Right.
Get them super interested in you,
Right.
And just build it up from there. But it, definitely good for them, it's Malinois shepherds, things like that. They really love that. And I like how you said, releasing the food as you're going, is you keep that prey drive moving. That food's flying out of your hand, bouncing, still keeping them like into the game.
Yeah.
To build up those reps.
Yeah, 100%. Been very effective. And some dogs that you wouldn't think that would work for, it does work for. So, again, all things you guys can think about and try out. But let's say you've tried all of these strategies. You've done everything we've talked about. You've looked into it. You've experimented with it. And your dog still won't take food. This is a possibility. It does happen. It's very rare because usually your troubleshooting steps resolve it, but it's not working. And before I go into this real quick, you've got to do your time. You've got to have patience. You don't want to rush into what I'm about to talk about. Your main priority is to increase your dog's food drive, increase your dog's motivation for food, to get them to take food that's going to be the most beneficial thing for your training. But if all this is not working, here's your next options, right? The next step is work on increasing the bond with your dog. And this doesn't mean sitting on the couch with them, watching TV, sleeping with them. No, not that. I mean like real bonding with your dog, like a dog likes to bond. So you got two main things here. One is going to be walking. Just take your dog for a walk. Go for a walk, your dog. Do it routinely, right? Multiple times a day if you can. Walking is good for you. Walking is good for your dog. Bring some food rewards with you and randomly experiment on your walks to see if your dog will take food at any point in time. If they do start taking food, then go through our other strategies and increase that food drive rapidly, right? But walking, that's going to be a great way to bond with your dog. You get them to start taking food, they start checking in with you more often, then you can increase your dog's motivation for food, increase their hunger drive, increase your training very rapidly, okay? That is effective a lot of times as well, because I've trained a bunch of dogs where no strategy's working. I start just walking, hanging out with them on the walk, not on the couch. Hanging out with them on the walk. Now the dog's more interested in like, oh, what's this guy got going on? I start to trust this guy more. I want to hang around with this guy more, right? Then they take the food, right? Second thing for bonding, and this you might not think this is bonding, but providing more structure to your dog. Your dog does like structure. Your dog needs rules, boundaries, expectations. So provide more structure in the house. This could be removing toys. It could be removing chew items until your dog's food drive increases. Because if you go out to try to train with your dog's not training, blowing you off, whatever, nothing's working, go back to the house. Now your dog has a free-for-all in the house. There's toys everywhere. There's chew things everywhere. Your dog is literally getting reinforced for kind of ignoring you. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So that could be a factor, something I would definitely think about. Or you could also use some more kennel time to manage your dog to where they kind of get bored until they want to start taking food from you, right? So structure does play a big factor. Walking does play a big factor. You got any inputs on walking and structure or other things?
Yeah, I mean, just you as a whole, it's like you have to have your dog value and respect your time, you know? And that can be a hard conversation for some owners where it's like, hey, your dog just doesn't really respect you at this point.
Right.
So like you said, if they come in and they just have a free for all, it's like, why would they, versus like tapping into that social drive, like using the kennel, they start to learn, hey, I get to stay out of the kennel if I interact, start to create some of this motivation. I can't tell you the amount of dogs that have come through where it's like, all right, we're doing the walks, trying to feed, it's not working. What are we going to do? Put them in the car and go on a ride, just go to somewhere new. No expectations, no nothing.
Right.
We walk around the park together, not trying to hold them to obedience or anything like that.
Right.
Put them back in, come back here. Now all of a sudden they're really into me and like what I can provide for them. So I'm starting to increase my value to them and starting to build that respect with them to where I get that desired interaction.
Yeah, something else I've done kind of hand in hand with taking them to a random place is I'll just be moving around the house. I'll take like the leash, I'll tie it to my belt. So now you're tied to me. You can kind of move around me, but you're tied to me. And wherever I'm going, you're going, right? Yep. So you just got to follow me. If I'm eating lunch, you're sitting next to me. You're not sitting, you can stand or whatever, but you're just kind of there. And you're literally involved in everything that I'm doing. And now you're kind of like, okay, well, I'm gonna start paying attention to this guy because I'm just with him all the time.
Then limiting that free roam.
Right.
So if they get bored, now they can just wander over here. Well, you can't go too far if that leash is attached.
Right.
It's like, so you're going to start paying attention to me at some point.
Right. Exactly. And then once you do, you get all these things back.
Yep.
Right. You get all these privileges back once we actually start. We're able to actually start working on our progression of training.
Yeah.
Because training is for your dog's safety. It's for your dog's well-being. Right. If your dog's put on the leash, that's working against you. That could be dangerous. If your dog won't come on command, that's dangerous. If your dog won't stay when you ask it to stay, that's dangerous. Yeah. That's why training needs to get done. Which means if we have a dog that's not taking food, we got to really work to increase that food drive so we can get the training done. Once the training's done, I can ensure you're safe. Now we can go back to, boom, privileges, freedom in the house, chew toys everywhere, whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's breaking down the barrier in the owner too, right?
Right.
It's like, hey, I don't want to be mean to my dog. My dog's always been able to do this. If I take this away, they're going to feel some kind of way,
right,
et cetera, et cetera. And it's like, my two dogs are probably some of the most spoiled dogs on the face of the planet because they earn it.
Yeah.
Right. So when it's time to work, it's time to work. It's two ends of the spectrum.
Right.
When I want them to work, I expect them to work, and I expect a certain level of work to be accomplished. As long as they accomplish that and do good, then they continue to get these good things. And they understand that balance, and that's the motivation for them to perform.
Right.
So you can get back to that. That's fine.
Right.
I've had owners, I want to dress my dog in pajamas and do this and do that. It's okay, you can.
Right.
But there's got to be another end to it as well.
Right.
To where that all kind of like works together. Right.
Right. 100%. One last thing is, you can start some training with your dog with some leash work and tactile communication. But if you do this, you constantly are testing the food drive to see, will my dog start taking food? As soon as your dog starts taking food, you lean on the food work heavily, right? So what do I mean by leash work and tactile communication? One example could be, you're trying to teach your dog how to sit and you're walking them. What you could do is just a gentle pull up on the leash. If your dog's on a leash, just a gentle pull up on the leash to give them some directional upward tension on the leash. And a lot of times, a lot of dogs will just sit if they start feeling that. But if they don't, you can just gently tap their hips, and then that will, kind of bring the dog's awareness to their rear end through your tactile communication of touching the hips with your finger. And then your dog kind of moves their butt down, right? So that is just one example of what you could do. We did show that in a recent YouTube video about why your dog won't take food on the Canine Revolution dog training channel, like what that would look like. But anytime you're doing this, right, it's not I mean, it is effective. It can work. It will get you going. But the priority is getting your dog to take food. So sometimes you start implementing this little bit of structure with your leash work that starts to instigate the dog into being interested in taking food. So you constantly are testing out your dog's food drive throughout the whole process here, right? So something you can think about, something you can look into, but again, your number one priority, increase the food drive, increase the food motivation, so we can crank out repetitions, we can have fun, our dog can enjoy what they're doing, our dog starts to solve problems. But don't forget, as you're training and your behaviors become stronger, you have to decrease the amount of food that you're using in training. Don't get stuck using food your dog's whole life. Don't get stuck giving your dog treats all the time, right? So just something to think about. But I will say we did cover quite a bit of information here. One of the most important things, this takes time. This takes repetition. This takes practice. It takes consistency. So on the consistency piece, let's say you're doing some troubleshooting for your food drive. You got to do that consistently until you resolve it. Because if you take away your dog's chew things in the house, for example, the structure, and then you start hand feeding them their meals, but then tomorrow you let them have all their stuff in the house, you're being inconsistent, right? You're being inconsistent. That's working against you. So you got to be very consistent. Dogs need routine. They need ritual, right, in order to get them to where you want them to be to meet your goals. Once you meet your goals, now all these privileges open back up, right? So try out these strategies. See which one works best for you. Leave us a comment on YouTube as to what is working best for you, what you found useful, and what strategies did not work for you. Like if you tried out some of these things we talked about and it didn't work, let us know in the comments on YouTube. That way people can start to learn from each other. Don't forget, check out Pack Talk Podcast and Canine Revolution Dog Training on YouTube. We got channels for both of them. Leave us a 5-star on your favorite podcast platform. And if you want help with your dog training, if you want support, Canine Revolution Dog Training is here to help you. We've got board and train programs. We've got private lessons. We've got virtual lessons. If you're a podcast listener and you're like, I like what these guys are saying, I want to get some more insight, we can set up a virtual lesson, and then we can keep doing lessons as long as you need to help you reach your goals, troubleshooting with you. Our phone number is 843-213-2676. You can also email us info@caninerevolutiondogtraining.com in order to set these up or get some more information. So Canine Revolution Dog Training, check us out, all your social media platforms, whatever you like. We've also got Canine Revolution Apparel. So if you want to represent, you can go to Canine Revolution Apparel. You can get you a Canine Revolution logo shirt. You can get you a Canine Revolution logo hoodie. You can get you a Good to Go shirt. You can get you a good to go hoodie. We've got lots of options on there. And we got new things happening now. New products, new water bottles, dude. New water bottles. They're banging. Stainless steel.
Don't have to make my own anymore.
So check that out, Canine Revolution Apparel on Amazon. That's going to be your go-to place. Next up, if you want to feed your dog the best food possible, you go to wefeedraw.com. I will say my dogs are loving the venison recipes right now. Like, I've noticed a difference if I break out the lamb, they like it. Break out that venison, they start going freaking crazy, dude. They go crazy. So wefeedraw.com, you can customize a meal plan for your dog. You can get the full frozen raw packets of food. They ship it to your door. You just thaw it out, you feed it to your dog. Or you can get the freeze-dried raw, where it comes in your traditional dog food bag. You just pour it in your dog's food bowl. No thawing needed, no freezer needed, no refrigerator needed. It's just ready to go. They also got training treats on there, which the dogs do like too. And you can use the freeze-dried raw food as training rewards. So possibly something to try out to bring up that high-value food reward for your dog like we talked about. So you just go to wefeedraw.com. Discount code is Canine Revolution, spelt out, all caps, no spaces. That gets you 25% off your first meal plan. And then they'll just keep shipping it till you can cancel a meal plan at any time you want to. All right, next up we've got Canine Super Supplements, the letter K, the number 9, supersupplements.com. This is supplements for your dog. Weight gainer, joint support, multivitamin, puppy formula. Multivitamin is great for dogs that are recovering from an injury, ACL tear, right? Luxating patella, right? Spay, neuter. Maybe they've got some kind of sickness, right? Anything like that, that multivitamin, it's enhancing their immunity, enhancing their body's ability to heal itself and make itself better, right? Weight gainer, you got a hard gainer, you've dropped the weight gainer on there, drop some in your protein shaker, you're good to go. Your dog's good to go. It's freaking good, dude. Dogs love it too. They love it, All right, so check those out, caninesupersupplements.com. Discount code Canine Revolution, all caps, no spaces, 15% off. Trust me, your dog will love it, right? So whether you're feeding a raw diet or if you have to feed kibble, you add Canine Super Supplements to it, your dog will thank you, right? All right, last but not least, we got JockoFuel. This is for you, the dog owner, the dog lover, the dog trainer, anybody involved with dogs, anybody not involved with dogs, right? For you, the human. JockoFuel.com, discount code Canine Revolution, all caps, no spaces, 10% off. Recently, I had a situation. I didn't know I was asleep, but you know how dreams are like super like real. So I was dreaming, right? I had this dream that I had a chocolate milk shake, right? Chocolate milk. I was drinking about chocolate milk. I was like, I need protein. I need good flavor. I literally, like in my dream, I'm drinking a chocolate milkshake. That's what I was drinking. But I woke up and I realized I'm dreaming, and I realized I don't have any chocolate milk. So I immediately just got out of bed, went over to my phone, got on the JockoFuel.com. I just ordered the chocolate milk. So now I have it. Now I'm good to freaking go, dude. So that did happen. That means that I needed it because my body, when you're sleeping, your body's healing itself. It's making itself better. So if you don't have in your body what it needs, it'll tell you. That's what it told me in my dream. It said, I need chocolate milk, right? So I had to get the chocolate milk. But don't forget something else that most people are deficient in, omega fatty acids. Fish oil. Jocko fish oil has what you need. Take 2 of those a day. It'll get you where you need to go, right? Also, don't forget creatine. Creatine, good for everybody. As you're getting older, cognition comes down, right? Unfortunately. So you add in that creatine, it helps your cognition stay super sharp, right? Right, exactly. Erect cognition, right? Also helps your strength as well, too. So the scooper, if you get the Jocko creatine, it comes with a 5-gram scooper. Just put 2 of those in there. Put 2 of those in your milk. Put 2 of those in your coffee. Freaking good to go, dude. Freaking good to go. Your performance will increase, right? In the gym and life. All right. So anyway, JockoFuel.com. Check it out. If you guys got questions, let us know. All right. But thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in. If this helps, again, leave us a comment on our YouTube. We're tracking that. Try to respond. try to let you know some things to think about. And most of our episodes come from your responses, right? You leave us a comment, I'm struggling with this. We're like, oh, shoot, we need to go into a little deep dive on that, do an episode on that, dude. So that's where a lot of our episodes come from. So thank you for listening. Thank you for your support. We'll see you next time. This is Pack Talk Podcast.